What is up, Rumble? What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. I'm your host, Ryan Matta. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We're going to get into all things Bitcoin. I got a special guest. His name is Eric V. Stacks. We're going to dive into a lot of things. We're going to talk about proof-of-stake blockchains. We're going to talk about Bitcoin adoption. We're going to talk about regulations. But I want to give you guys, I don't normally do this, but we talked about this last night in the live stream, and I found this video from Eric this morning. So I want to play a little, give you guys a sneak preview of the guests we're going to have on our show. I'm going to let you guys check out this video. And then if you guys could do me a huge, huge favor, make sure you guys swing over to X and give this man a follow. Links to his Twitter are down below in the description. So if you guys could just swing over there, smash that subscribe button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Check out this video clip, and we're going to get right into it.
Yo, good day. Good day indeed. So, I want to share a thought. The other day I watched one of Matt Kratter's videos. I watch all of Matt Kratter's videos. Are you even a Bitcoin maximalist if you haven't watched literally every single Bitcoin video he's ever made? I don't know. Bitcoin University. You should check it out. So, he's got a video about Ethereum and how he believes Gary G and the SEC is going to sue the Ethereum Foundation for being an unregistered security. I agree, actually. I do. Well, first off, how the fuck are you going to, or some, I mean, people are apparently, how are we going to trust an individual who's got fucking bedhead? This little fucking cat person. Ooh, curtains are opening. Good timing. Bedhead, this motherfucker can't even fucking put water in his hair before he gets on stage to talk about the Ethereum Foundation. Oh yeah, the protocol. He's like, oh yeah, and then with proof of work, you're limited to the laws of physics. With proof of stake, we can make whatever funny universe world we want. Oh my goodness, how is that good? Gosh, that's YOLO. That's fucking nihilism. I'm gonna catch a fucking 1000x. The flippening. Gosh, so all of them are flawed premises. It's all flawed premise. The value proposition is just, it doesn't make any sense. As Safedine says, Ethereum is the mother asshole, which so many shitcoins spring from. Bing! Oh gosh, anyways. So, the hardcore Bitcoin maxis, who've been in the game for a minute, they understand this. They do. I'm a free market maximalist, though. I believe that you should be allowed to get wrecked buying Ethereum or dog coins or whatever the fuck you want, right?
Agreed.
Pain is life's greatest teacher. Wow. God, economic pain, that'll sure teach you. Losing a bunch of money. They're all trades. At best, you gotta fucking get a pump and then sell them. Which goes right into why are all these altcoins? It's a flawed premise. The whole idea is that, what, you're gonna trade? You're gonna catch a big 1000x, then you're gonna sell it. Well, if everybody does that, they're going to sell it down. It's not going to have any value. People are buying Bitcoin to hold it for fucking ever. Yeah. So anyways, Gary G, his time at MIT, he talked about proof of work, proof of stake, securities, blah, blah, blah. We all fucking know. We all know. He knows Ethereum's a security. He knows we know Ethereum is a security. Why hasn't he shut it down? Let's think about this.
All right, folks, I won't keep spoiling it. That is over there on Eric's Twitter. So if you guys want to see it, he just posted it. I retweeted it this morning. Eric, buddy, welcome to the show, man. It's an absolute honor to have you.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
Man, so tell us a little bit about yourself, man. When did you get into crypto? When did you get into Bitcoin? And let's walk through your journey. Let people get to know you a little bit, and then we'll dive into all things shitcoins and bashing some Ethereum and roasting some shitcoins together.
Yeah, man. So the short but comprehensive story here is I grew up in Southern California. Parents divorced. My mother remarried to a psychiatrist. She went back to school. She became a professor of sociology. She got a doctorate degree in sociology. And during that 15-year period, she also took antidepressants, which were socially acceptable. And this credible doctor figure within the household was an advocate for such things. He was worked in the prison system, and he prescribed pharmaceuticals and antipsychotics and antidepressants to, I don't know, people you could say that were struggling with the woes of what now I refer to we all refer to as the fiat world. At the time, I didn't understand that. So I watched my family members who were, successful, hardworking, honest people, no dirty drugs or debauchery, you could say, but they got into pharmaceuticals. And so in my early teens, I developed an affinity for cannabis. The first time I smoked weed, I'm like, wait a second, this isn't some disgusting, despicable thing. And if, all of these other substances could be legal, why is it that cannabis isn't legal? Yeah, so that led me down a path, in addition to loss of family members, including my mother, as a result of pharmaceutical use. My mother committed suicide after being on antidepressants for 15 years. They didn't solve any of her issues. I would say they exacerbated her problems. And so when I was at the age of 25, I was invited by a friend of mine from Southern California. She went to Humboldt State University. She knew how much I loved weed. And she invited me to come and work a harvest. In 2009, I came up and trimmed an outdoor harvest on a medical marijuana farm and found my calling. I've been here in Northern California professionally, commercially producing cannabis ever since. And actually, I was one of the first recipients of one of the first state licenses in all of history. January of 2018, when the state of California started issuing licenses to produce cannabis, sell cannabis, whatever. They went from so there was a medical marijuana industry from 2006 to 2018. In 2018, it became full recreational use. And in 2018, I had just bought a property 2 years prior to that and gone through the whole regulatory process and then been licensed by the state of California. So it was kind of like this dream come true moment for me. Actually become nightmare. That's a long story. I sold the business. And that was part of also my Bitcoin journey. In 2017, when I was going through the process of getting permitted and licensed, permitted by the county and then licensed by the state, and this property, which was the first land that I had purchased. I had 10 acres with the house and 7 acres that was a vacant adjacent parcel where the cannabis license was. So I had the largest economic incentive I had ever had at that time in my life to understand what takes place with the real estate boom bust cycles, what's causing these economic swings that we're all experiencing. I'm a millennial. I'm 39 years old. I graduated high school in 2003. I was selling cars in 2008 when
great financial crisis.
The recession hit. Yeah, great financial crisis hit. Thank you there. So I understood what was taking place, but I didn't have an incentive to really go deep down the rabbit hole and understand why. So in 2017, when I'm standing on this parcel, this property, and I'm interfacing with the county and the state, and I had just incorporated, so I'm learning. So I have an understanding for corporate structure, corporate law, the political process, how regulations are being developed, the real estate process. It was like a real lesson in this through like first world experience and something that was very important to me. Yeah, so I went down, the economic rabbit hole, the hard money rabbit hole kind of, became real quickly. You're like, gold and silver, that. And I'm in a cash-based business. So I understand the value of gold and silver and the inability to debase it arbitrarily, which led me into Bitcoin, which was at the end of 2017. And I was really well primed to understand the magnitude of Bitcoin and how big of a deal it was. And for the next couple of years, my whole thesis was essentially this thing goes up to multi-millions. It goes up forever or it goes to zero. At this point, I don't think it goes to zero. I think anything is possible, but I think it's so highly improbable that we could just speak in certainties, like I hear George Gammon, like you Bitcoin maxis need to talk in probabilities. Well, everything's probabilistic. So even if I say something that seems as if I'm coming across like it's a certainty, I understand that it's all probabilistic. So I don't think Bitcoin's going away. I think that's pretty clear. I think the Trojan horse of freedom and abundance has made it into the castle here. And it's not some bloody battle, too. These people are going to jump right out of the Trojan horse. We're all going to celebrate because it's like Jeff Booth says it, where you have abundance and money, you create scarcity and everything else. Where you have scarcity and money, you create abundance and everything else. When the money is the hardest asset within the marketplace, the incentive to serve your self-interest is to hold the money. And if the money is metaphysical, invisible matter like Bitcoin is, then the hoarding of that thing is actually not good. It's good for everybody. It doesn't hurt anybody. So now you have essentially the apex asset within the marketplace is an engineered money. It's an ethical investment. And the incentive to get the most is to hold that which is demonetizing everything else, things like houses and whatnot that people need. So yeah, in 2019, I did a little shit coining. 2020, I had a real busy year. And when I say shit coining, like I vaped like 5-10 grand, throwing them at some fucking, as far as I'm concerned, it was kind of like slot machines. I kind of wish I had that money at the time. Dude, that's like 2 Bitcoin. What the fuck, dude? Instead, no, I got nothing, dude. I got a fucking empty Exodus wallet with like Exodus wallet with like fucking $8 of some fucking garbage in there. So, yeah, man. And then when the Sailor series hit, dude, my mind fucking exploded, and I just panic sold everything else that I had and just plowed all into Bitcoin. And it was just at that point too, I'm a little bit of a revolutionary. I've spent the last 15 years of my life producing cannabis, and I'm not a huge risk taker. So I haven't been sending my product over state lines. I've had to do things the right way, which is the hard way, which is very cost impedance. There's lots of taxes. It hasn't been I haven't become some mega whale as a result of my prior cannabis career. But for me, it's kind of every time I bag a pound, it's a fuck you to Big Pharma, who has killed some of my family members. And as far as I'm concerned, the fiat world has incentivized their scumbaggery and their shitty business practices. And I'm not entirely technologically adverse. I think Big Pharma and the pharmaceutical industry, you could say technology, we've solved a lot of problems. Antibiotics are good things. I'm sure some of these chemical constituents and whatever are good for certain circumstances, but they're heavily abused. They're patented and they're used to exploit and profit in perpetuity. And I think that that's an issue. And, so at this point, I'm all in on Bitcoin, man. I own 2 vehicles. I live in a rental, and then everything else that I have is in Bitcoin, man. It's at the most at any given point, I have 1 month's worth of bills in USD. Other than that, right into Bitcoin.
I'm right there with you.
So,
right
yeah, man.
I actually keep about 2 months, maybe a little bit extra, but
yeah,
that's it, man. Everything goes right into Bitcoin, right into crypto. No questions asked.
Yep.
Tell me about. Walk me back through that. So your mom, because I had a friend's mother as well that also passed away because of pharmaceuticals. Walk me through that a little bit. I don't want to pry, but you had touched on the fact that you kind of hold Big Pharma accountable and you pointed back to it stemming from fiat currency and the debasement of our currency. Was that like did you watch her life just continuing to get exponentially worse no matter how hard she worked or how much she tried to put out because of the debasement of our currency?
Yes and no. So the debasement of the currency actually didn't really affect the quality of our life per se. It was indirect. I was fortunate, my father's a very intelligent, hardworking man. His economic struggles were a result of the broken incentives in the divorce system. But my mother was married to a doctor. So, we had a nice house. We remodeled this old Victorian home. She had the privilege of going around antique shopping and restoring clawfoot bathtubs and like building this dream home of hers. But the reality is that she had made decisions in her life that she didn't feel great about. And as opposed to going inward and doing the inner work, that internal grappling with trying to figure out how to adopt a perspective to understand that everything that we're doing or have done is for our highest. And we need to figure out how to, I look at life as like a movie. You can't go back and refilm scenes that are already filmed, but you're the narrator of your movie. And there's in every moment, there's a new opportunity to narrate the past differently. And you can take this victim role where these shitty things happen to me and it's terrible and my life sucks and woe is me. And, I'm never going to be anything because of this hard thing. Or you could say, fuck that. I had these challenges. They made me a stronger person. I've developed this perspective. I've strengthened the contrast by experiencing a lot more of what I don't want. Now I know what I do want as a result. It's an attitude of gratitude. It's a perspective shift. And so as opposed to doing that inner work, or even, and I would say that as far as drugs or chemicals or molecules go, there are some on planet Earth that humans have been using for hundreds of thousands of years, like psilocybin and ayahuasca and other plant medicines. Cannabis is a great example that do bring you inward, make you present, and they do help you in that sense kind of grapple mentally with certain things that, you know, sometimes we need to like defragment our computer, our mental hard drive, if you will, kind of go through that process. And some people do it through meditation. Some people do it through like that flow state of an extreme sport. Some people do it through art or music or whatever it may be. So in her case, though, she was incentivized and she was encouraged to take these pharmaceutical pills, which essentially makes people numb. Makes them numb. And so for her, I watched her struggle with depression and she didn't feel good. And she kept taking the pills, which numbed her, but they actually didn't solve her problem. And it's like, you've heard the saying in the medical industry, like a patient cured is a customer lost. And so the problem that I see, and it actually stemmed also from food issues. So she, you know, would eat a little bit of sugar and she'd eat, you know, kind of eating nutritionally void foods that are too high in sugar concentrates that are wrecking the gut microbiome. So a little lethargy, a little inflammation, a little nutritional deficiency, a little too many high fructose syrup based sodas along with dinner. Those things wreck your gut biome and they make you inflamed. They make your joints hurt. They make you a little lethargic, a little tired. And so that coupled with terrible medications or pharmaceutical pills didn't make her feel good. And so I watched her kind of get progressively worse as I went from, 5 to 20 years old when she died. And now that I look back, I have, thanks to people like Jeff Booth and Michael Saylor in the Saylor series, I can see very clearly the forces at play. And as the currency gets debased, if the monetary units within the system get expanded by, let's say, 10% a year on average, right? I think it's 7.5% a year on average for the last 100 years, but let's just call it 10% over the last 10 or whatever arbitrary period of time. So if the monetary units increase by 10%, that's what we, at least the Bitcoin community and generally a lot of people nowadays in the world would consider to be the true inflation rate, not CPI.
Yep.
And the cost of living goes up on average 10% in real terms for the things we really want, not just streaming Netflix or drywall or fucking seed oils, right? Top ramen might go up at 2% a year, but they're making it more efficiently, right? Yeah. So if the inflation rate is 10% and your cash flow as a business, your P&L doesn't increase by 10% and it only increases by 5%, you took a haircut. Yeah. So we fundamentally live in a deflationary world where supply is always meeting demand. If there's a demand for something, there's a large economic incentive. Typically, if there's a demand for something, there's not enough supply, the marketplace will bid the price up. As the price goes up, the margin goes up. As the margin goes up, the economic incentive for entrepreneurs and capital to flow into that sector of the marketplace, meet that demand with supply, in turn driving the price down. That's a deflationary force. So in our modern world where you have a deflationary force, which is the natural force of free markets, technology, and human ingenuity, and you'll never be able to suppress that. 200,000 years ago, a million years ago, whatever it is, some fucking time frame a long time ago, some guy standing next to a river with a fucking spear stopped and was like, wait a second, I'm going to go back here with the babes who are picking berries right now, and we're going to take a break and we're going to make a net. And it's going to take a week to make this net, but I'm going to stop fishing with this spear for an entire week. I'm going to save up energy, capital, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to deploy that capital back into my little marketplace, my little village caveman life. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to procure 10x the fish in one day. That's capitalism. That's technology. That's a free market. That's deflation. This guy is putting out less energy to get more energy in return. We live in an energy in, energy out reality. And as the currency is being debased, those economic gains, you could say, are being harvested. And the people who are behind the debasement of the currency are allowed to take that energy and deploy it however they want. The government currently misallocates capital like crazy because they're not feeling the economic pain of doing so, as they fund things the free market would otherwise not want, taxpayers would otherwise not want. They need to further debase. And as they debase, they're creating a dynamic within the marketplace where it's perpetually harder to maintain margins. And so as that happens, you're incentivized as a business and shareholders within a business. And I think Booth says that I love, there is no they, it's just us. Just humans serving their self-interest. They have a fiduciary responsibility. They need to make money. They're on the board of directors for these large corporations. They need to figure out how to continue to sell things into the marketplace and maintain their margins. And so if you're a food company, now you're putting more fillers in there. If you're a pharmaceutical company, now you got patents. If you're, and so the incentive is not to make people truly better, healthy, and abundant, and so on. The incentive is to figure out how to continue to perpetually extract economic energy and money, you could say cash USD, from these customers, market participants that you're interfacing with. And so the fiat debasement, I would say, is directly responsible for the demise in my personal world of family members of mine, and so many others that are out in the world are suffering for a multitude of reasons. One, you got the moving target, but we're interfacing with other market participants that are creating goods and services that are incentivized to behave shittily. And it's like, yeah, and it with a hard money standard where you have a money that's not being debased, and that surplus that's being created, that efficiency across the entire market, you could say globally, that's a GDP increase, would be reflected in the monetary network. And so and that's actually interesting. The GDP is said to increase by 2%. So we get 2% more efficient every year. We make 2% more every year with the same output. So we're harnessing and channeling energy more effectively. It's like the Sailor series. It's just like humans have been channeling energy. It's what we do. Well, if the target, the inflation, the CPI inflation rate is 2%, that's essentially stealing that economic gain that's being made every year. But what 2% is like that slow burn. If somebody just came into your house and stole 2% of your stuff, you almost wouldn't even know it. But the problem is that with the fiat mechanism that we have, the monetary units are lent into existence as debt against assets. So if there's a financial crisis, a default, a mass default within the system, a liquidity crisis where there's not enough monetary units to pay back or service that debt, which there's not, then what happens is the debasement every time has to become greater because you have exponentially more liabilities within the system every time that there's a default, requiring exponentially more debasement to cover up those liabilities. And so we're in the midst of this like feedback loop, this debt spiral, as so many like people, speak to, Larry Lepard and James Lavish. And, these are all real things. Like, yeah. So anyways, the fiat currency, the debasement of the currency. This is another thing too. I don't get too wrapped up in the politics. I don't really pay attention, I pay attention. I'm well aware of clown world and all the atrocities taking place and all the lunacy, but I don't get wrapped up in the political divide. I think there's a divide and conquer strategy. The more that we're divided and yelling at each other, the more distracted we are. And the more that you yell at something that you don't like, you're actually feeding it with energy. And so I put all my energy into Bitcoin, talking about the awesome things about Bitcoin. I know that's maybe a little bit ironic after hearing me slam Ethereum there, but I'm talking about Ethereum through the lens of Bitcoin. Like, why do we have this proof of stake protocol when we have, as Sailor says it, and I totally agree, the hardest substance in the known motherfucking universe? You have the discovery of incorruptibility. It's not a technology, it's a protocol. It's literally like, it's a very special, it's so many things. It's a very special thing, and it's a big fucking deal. And so I pay attention to that. I put my energy into that, and I think that that's the most important thing. Fix the money, fix the world. And so until we fix the money problems, I don't think that really some political leader, some new human is not going to come and solve our problems. Humans are corruptible. Bitcoin is the discovery of incorruptibility. It's because it's using human greed to do something that's good for all of us. If you want the most, you capitulate into that incentive vortex. It takes trillions of more energy to try to attack the network than it does to protect the network. My node cost me like 1 penny or something, some ridiculously small amount of electricity to deny a false bad block. But to mine that block, I don't know what at today's price is, like $400,000 in electricity or something. So if you have that kind of power, why would you attack the network? Yeah, totally. So, and that's true throughout the ethos and how the Bitcoin network is designed. 128 or 256 bit encryption for your private keys. Like, if I want your Bitcoin, trying to get your private keys is a really shitty use of my energy when I could just strike a deal with you. So now the incentive is to consent. The incentive is to peace. The incentive is to cooperation. Even from the most sociopathic, selfish scumbags who are willing and capable of plunder and theft and destruction in the world, it's actually, I would say, they're the most predisposed to just do anything to get the Bitcoin, even include kill people. Well, now if you kill people, you don't get their money. So what are you going to do? As they say on the streets, you're going to motherfucking come correct, dude. You're going to come and you're going to make a deal. Let's make a deal here. Yep. So yeah, that's a lot there, but yeah, man.
No, man, you touch on a lot of great things. I don't even know where to start. You touch on so many of them. I couldn't agree with everything that you said there more. What do you think it is that when, I think back when we got into crypto, I was in 2015 and then 2017, like we didn't have the Michael Saylors, right? We didn't have the educational content that we had now. So yeah. I feel like going down the shitcoin rabbit hole was almost like a rite of passage into the crypto space. You didn't know better. There wasn't anybody to really guide you. So you kind of just try to figure your own path, and you're watching as many YouTube videos and hearing all these people convince you that their project's the next decentralized Bitcoin and it's going to save the world and revolutionize the banking industry. And they all were just scummy lies, and all that content is out there now and all that evidence is out there. What do you think it is about people that get into crypto? You meet somebody, you start to try to orange pill them, you tell them to only buy Bitcoin, and you tell them don't touch crypto until you watch 40 hours of Michael Saylor's videos or 120 hours of Robert Breedlove. And then they send you a DM and like 8 hours later, and like, yo, bro, I just got onto crypto.com and I just bought some Ethereum or Solana or whatever shitcoin it is. Yep. What do you think that mindset is, and why do people have it?
In my opinion, I think that it stems from the I call it the BB world. It's before Bitcoin. It's the old paradigm. It's before we merged the physical world with the metaphysical world, before we discovered matter in cyberspace, before Satoshi solved the double spend problem. And in that world, everything was corruptible, and there was no thermodynamically sound monetary instrument. Everything had some sort of energy loss. And when I say that, it had some leakage of some sort. You have a hurdle rate with the debasement of the currency. If the debasement of the currency is 7.5% and the house increases at 7.5% over, let's say, a 20 or 30 year period of time, say 35 years. So let's take a house as a great example. A house appreciates on average, and it has, at 7.5% a year annually. If you have $1 million house and it's paid for, let's not even put into a consideration that most people have a mortgage on their house. If you have a $1 million house that's paid for, and you live in a jurisdiction where you have 1% property tax, and you have 1% in annual average maintenance cost, because you have a physical asset that's going to require a roof or a driveway or something, you have to put 1% of the value on average annually into this property. You have a 2% annual loss against that parcel, that property. Over 35, and you could look at that as a 2% energy loss. Over 35 years, your half-life is 35 years. In 35 years, you have to put back in half of the value of the property. As it's appreciating in value too, that becomes higher. So you're losing half of the value over 35 years, storing your economic energy in real estate because you have a 2% energy loss. Everything that humans want on planet Earth pre-Bitcoin will make more of. So, for example, the existence of Dubai is dilutive of beachfront real estate in Miami. Miami, like if people want more $40 million homes in Miami and there's not enough for sale and there's a market for them, there's a lot of beachfront property that developers will go and build more homes. Politicians will be like, yeah, let's go just subdivide. Let's change the laws so that you could further subdivide all this land, and we can satiate that market demand with more supply. If billionaires want more baller penthouses in Manhattan, they'll rip down some old shitty building and they'll make a new one that's really tall. If we want another tech company, another Apple to buy shares in, like, there will be another company to monetize and buy shares in. So in the old world, the BB world, the before Bitcoin, the world, the before the discovery of true scarcity and a thermodynamically sound monetary instrument that has no leakage, the strategy was to diversify. So you wanted a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You needed your 60-40 portfolio. You got real estate. You could lever the real estate easily because you can get a mortgage against it. You could go buy more real estate. And you want to have some Apple stock and some Facebook and some Amazon. You want to have some government bonds, maybe a little bit of gold. But when we discovered true scarcity, and that comes in the form of a perfectly engineered monetary instrument, a sailor famously said, there is no second best. Selling down your Bitcoin when the price pumps to buy something else to keep a well-balanced portfolio is diversification. You're selling the winner to buy the loser. So in the AB world, after Bitcoin, the strategy has now changed. Now the strategy to get the most is to put your economic energy into the thermodynamically sound monetary instrument that has a half-life forever. Once we've hit 21 million coins, we're still mining. And really over the next 10 years, we go from 91% of the supply to 99% of the supply has been mined. So, yeah, it's the stock to flow. It's the hardest asset that you could hold. It's the easiest to custody and protect. Yeah, so I think that the reason people get wrapped up in the shit coining and so many people are still stuck in it is because that was the old strategy. You needed to hedge yourself against whatever you were holding your economic energy and had a lot of counterparty risk. I'm a very conservative individual, as a matter of fact. I don't like taking big risk, and that's kind of ironic coming from somebody who's lived the life that I have. But yeah, the reason that I hold nothing but Bitcoin at this point is because it has the least counterparty risk. The only thing that I'm trusting continues is that humans are selfish and greedy. That's it. If you know that humans are selfish and greedy, then you know within very high probability, so high, it's not crazy to just speak in certainties, that Bitcoin is going to appreciate at a faster rate than everything else in the marketplace forever, as long as it exists. And I don't know why we would need a different, it's a living protocol. It's actually, we could in some sense say, the only truly democratic thing we have on planet Earth. If somebody needs to make an improvement, if one Satoshi is worth $1 and buys a cup of coffee 40, 50, 100 years from now, then you'll just write a backwards compatible software update and you'll further subdivide Bitcoin from 100 million units to a billion subunits, whatever. So you have this protocol. It's a protocol that is a living thing that humanity can upgrade and modify as needs, and it's only going to be changed if 51% of the people running the software want that update. It's like a public utility that provides private property rights for all of humanity forever. It's the biggest deal in human history, dude. So at least that's what I think. So
what was your thought, your overall thesis there is that just people have basically been programmed with a slave mindset for so long that when they start getting introduced to Bitcoin, they're so used to that old mindset they have that it's hard for them to break that habit?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, and well, I would say that mindset applies to the overlords, the banking bloodlines. Like, you know, if you're a leader on that level, you have actually, I would say on a macro level, you have just as much, if not more, market competition to contend with than you do on a micro level. At least on a micro level, we have overlords providing like boundaries and laws and police and whatnot, right? Like you could just be some overlord living your overlord life, then all of a sudden missiles and cannons and who knows what start flying into your fucking jurisdiction so that some other group of people are going to come in and kill you and take all your stuff. So Bitcoin is not, and this is another thing I've really thought long and hard about, and I don't just say this to be like provocative. I don't believe Bitcoin to be a threat to anybody, including banking bloodlines and central banks. It's a solution. Bitcoin makes fiat better. So fiat, the monetary units, the dollar is lent into existence as debt against assets. So when you go to the bank, if you're like, yo, hey, I'm going to buy this house. I got 50 G's that's been in the bank account here. I'm going to put it down. It's 10% on this $500,000 house. I need a mortgage. The 450 grand that they loan you to buy that house, at least 90% of it gets clicked into thin air.
Yep.
It's boom. It gets created into thin air at that moment when it's being lent against the house.
It's lent into existence.
It's lent into existence. Well, what does that do? That monetizes things within the marketplace, and it causes the value of those things to go up. As Saylor famously said, inflation is a vector. You could never accurately measure inflation because inflation moves into different sectors of the marketplace at different rates. So if the currency is being debased predominantly against houses, also equities, like Elon famously borrowed against his Tesla stock so he could buy Twitter. Most of the money that's lent into existence is lent against real estate. And that creates a continual feedback loop within real estate, where if you have a real estate portfolio of, let's say, 40 houses, 400 houses, whatever it may be, and the value of those houses goes up 7.5% a year on average, which it does. So let's use $100 million or a $10 million real estate portfolio. $10 million in 1 year, you accrue 750 grand in newfound equity. 100 million bucks is $7.5 million in newfound equity. You can go borrow half of that, 350 grand, 3.5 million, deploy that part of that to buy more real estate, live off the other part of it, and it's debt, so it's not taxed. Yep. This is what makes the AOCs, the Alexandria Cortezes of the world, go fucking crazy. It's because, the rich people aren't paying taxes. Well, the problem is it's the monetary mechanism where they're lending money into existence. It's not the fact that these people are rich. Some rich people provided an enormous amount of economic value by solving big problems. So you can you can't just redistribute their wealth. That's going to kill their incentive to produce. So with Bitcoin, I believe that because Bitcoin is supreme collateral, it's significantly better collateral than a house is. If someone goes belly up and they owe money against Bitcoin, you can sell the Bitcoin 24/7, 365 globally. If somebody breaks their leg, loses their job, gets hooked on pharmaceutical drugs because they've got a broken leg, they had some back surgery, now they're all fucked up on opiates, they lose their job, they go BK. Well, maybe they were in the middle of like a kitchen remodel or something on their house, and you're a bank and you have a mortgage against that house, and now you need to foreclose on somebody and sell that house. Well, if the house could be half ripped apart and now the house is worth a fraction of what the individual owes, it's actually shitty collateral. Like, you can only sell the house to however many people want to buy the house within that jurisdiction or that area at that time, and that's not very many people. So I believe in the future we're going to see like a BLOC, a Bitcoin equity line of credit. There's a multitude of reasons for this, actually. And that is actually good for the dollar because it allows them to continue to debase the currency, and it allows that debasement to flow into the Bitcoin network. And if it flows into the Bitcoin network and the Bitcoin shreds from 70K to 10 million a coin over a decade period or whatever it may be, this is hypothetical. I don't have price predictions other than it's going up motherfucking fast, and everybody better hold on tight because it's ripping forever. And so if that happens, though, that doesn't hurt anybody, right? If housing goes up 5x over a 5-year period, people are going to be homeless, dude. People are going to be living in their fucking cars. The state is going to come in and put rent controls in because landlords are going to be like, look, my cost of living is going up. My cost of operating is going up. It cost me 5 times as much to paint the house. And I got to raise the rent. And
do you know
so if they debase,
do you know what? Sorry, I wanted to add something to that. Do you know what the cost of a house will be 15 years from now if we just continue to appreciate the value we've appreciated for the previous 15 years? Like a basic 3-bedroom, 1,500 square foot house ranch. Just the plain Jane average house 50 years from now. If you had to guess, what would you think it would be?
15 years or 50?
50.
Whew, I would say like a $500 or $350,000 house, $450,000 house. Your average home in the States today would be somewhere around like 15 million bucks or something. It would just be
6.8 million for a house. You're close.
6.8. Yep. That's
So your great grandkids are going to have to make somehow enough to afford to pay a mortgage on a house that's 6.8 million just to get their first starter house. A car. Here's the real crazy one. Your average Ford Focus. I'm not talking electric or anything like that. Just manual windows, like the basic, right? 890,000. That's the rate.
That's incredible.
Just over. So not even counting the last 10 years where we've really taken off like a rocket. Like if you average it over the last 50 years, like right when the we went off the gold standard. But go ahead, continue on with your argument.
So that means though the average wage for it to be apples to apples in the world today, it's like your average wage is 40, 50 grand, you could say, and that's actually really above average. That's like a decent entry level wage. That's like, okay, I'm not broke as fuck anymore. And so you're 50K, you're not broke as fuck. You have to work your ass off. And the house that you want, let's get real, is $500,000. So that's 10x. In that world, if in a $6 million house, you got to make 600 grand a year. And it seems to be that the wages are the last thing to go up as the debasement takes place. So if they start debasing the currency and lending against Bitcoin, you have better collateral. The banks are better collateralized in the event of a default. If people get proverbially over their skis or over leveraged and they default, the bank has Bitcoin. They can sell the Bitcoin into the marketplace and they can get their capital back. It'll actually stop the defaults from requiring so much further bailout. And if the inflation, the new currency units, the new dollar units, if enough of that monetary energy flows into Bitcoin and not into housing, then the house price won't go up, but the Bitcoin price will go up. And that doesn't hurt anybody. If Bitcoin rips, it's not making anybody's life bad. If housing rips, it's meaning that people are fucking homeless, living on the streets. Like, and we all, I don't care where you are. If you go around the world, there are people all living on the motherfucking sidewalk with cardboard tarps and fucking blankets that are wet. And so, yeah, so I think that the existence of Bitcoin is a really incredible thing, and it's making everybody's lives better, including no coiners. And but this is why I think Gary Gensler, has allowed all of these unregistered securities to exist. I think that it's the only way to dilute the Bitcoin price to buy time, is because if Gary G came out years ago, like we all thought he was going to, and was like, look, all these proof of stake protocols, they're companies, they pre-mined, they're essentially selling equity in their companies, and that's a security, and you need to come register within the SEC. And I know firsthand how much the government wants you to come into compliance and come pay their regulatory fees because they need the money. And so my conspiracy theory, you could say, my thesis is that the allowance of the existence of all of this shitcoinery is the only way to dilute the Bitcoin price. And so I think at the right time, what we're going to see, and so actually, backtrack here. Saylor has famously said recently that like the approval of the ETFs is the most significant thing to happen to the long-term credibility and the success of Bitcoin yet. It doesn't matter what Elizabeth Warren says. The 11 largest funds are buying Bitcoin. So she could fucking talk whatever dumb shit she wants. It doesn't make a difference because the wealthy elite are buying the Bitcoin. And the fact that BlackRock is stacking sats instead of buying more single family homes is good for everybody. And so, there's a lot there, but let
me ask you on that. So you're a free market maximalist like myself. I absolutely despise the SEC. The fact that Gary Gensler was the man who facilitated the payments for the Steele dossier, meaning so when the FBI was trying to frame and pay an informant to go out there and find or make up evidence against Donald Trump so they could frame the president of the United States, Gary Gensler was the man who was facilitating those payments. I think he's the antichrist of crypto. I despise everything the SEC stands for. How does that resonate with you when you're like, these guys should be out there like basically deeming that this is an unregistered security, so you can't throw your money at shitcoins? How does that sit with you?
I actually don't really care either way, I would say, because I do believe that the free market works itself out. Unfortunately, we don't actually really have a free market where you have a central bank. You have essentially a half communistic marketplace as it is, because the central authorities can allocate capital wherever they want as they create new monetary units. It's a theft mechanism where they're siphoning that economic energy from people. Yeah, so it's not really a free market. And in a free market, though, in a true free market, over time, this stuff would work itself out. And so, and I think it is. I honestly do. What I do think, though, is that if you are going to regulate, shouldn't you regulate fairly? And so at the same time, like, I don't really care. And you could say that this is selfish, but I get cheaper sats.
Yes.
If we got people out there buying fucking dog coins Dude, some guy tried to tell me yesterday, he's a Hexican. He's like, keep dreaming, you dumb Bitcoin maximalist. I'm like, thank God for you, dude. Because you know what? The fact that you're funding Richard Hart's Gucci fucking closet.
Yep.
I get cheaper sats, bro. So it's very Darwinian. I'm sorry, but you failed the IQ test, and economically over time, one of us will be right. And I could be wrong. But, I do think that, over time, the free market will show what's the better monetary instrument for sure.
I just couldn't imagine going to another logical market actor, somebody that I respected that was, well educated in finance, and then trying to present them Hex as like the future of where they should put their money. I could only imagine that, or assume that, the people that are backing Hex are kind of looking a little bit like this guy that we have on the screen here, or maybe this guy right here. It's the same guy. That's Vitalik. That's the CEO of the Ethereum Foundation. You had mentioned his cat purse in one of your videos.
Yeah.
What is it that makes adult men go, yes, this dude right here makes me want to deploy massive capital to whatever that dude built? Is it just they just feel like they don't like being told what to do, or what is that mindset that I can't really figure out?
So I think that Bitcoin is it's a discovery more so than it's an invention. It's a protocol more so than it's a technology. It's a protocol that's comprised of a bunch of existing technologies. It being essentially, you could look at it as the discovery of incorruptibility, it being so difficult to corrupt, to the point where the incentive is to just capitulate into the protocol and do what's best for the protocol, because that's what's best for you.
Wow, that's deep.
It's the first time in all of known history that we've had that. And so people are looking at the AB world, the after Bitcoin world. This is post 2009. It's a new world. The strategy has changed. We have a new discovery that literally changes everything. Most people haven't figured that out yet. So they're looking at the new world through the lens of the old world. And in the old world, you wanted to catch that new technology because that's how you got 1000x. And then you could exit your position. You could put $1,000 into Ethereum. It's this new technology that's going to allow us to blockchainify real estate contracts and whatever other fucking crap you need. And you could build all these new use cases on it, and you could launch your new, I don't know, cannabis crypto coin and whatever. And so I don't think people have thought long and hard enough about it. That, and then we also have seen, it's when you look at it and you don't think deeply enough about it, you see these dweeby, like very beta male technology entrepreneurs, like, I don't know, Bill Gates, for example, who started Microsoft. And if you had only bought Microsoft really early, like if you just followed this psychopath dweeb, then you'd have just made all this money. And so I think that it's like a copy paste. Like that was the old strategy. People are trying to continue to use that strategy, and they're failing to see that Bitcoin it literally changes everything. And you listen to a guy like Richard Hart, who started Hex. He is really intelligent. And so he will rattle off like very compelling arguments as to why Bitcoin isn't good. And so it's two things. The old strategy was to diversify and find the new cheap thing to catch your 1000x. And when you listen to somebody discuss why Bitcoin won't work, you don't understand without doing a lot of work that Bitcoin is incorruptible, and it's like hardwired into our genetic code to not trust something that's too good to be true, because for all of known history it was. And our ancestors who bought into the too good to be true narrative typically got ripped off and killed. Straight up. So like they didn't exist. We're descendants of people who are really good at raising the eyebrow. Like, I don't know about that shit. Yep. So it's like hardwired into us to not trust that there's something that is as good as Bitcoin is. And so, yeah, I think it's just it's also an indicative of the high time preference, and I would say laziness, but it's not laziness. It's most people don't have much time dude, we're economically got our backs against the wall. Like, what we want in life is moving out of reach faster than our ability to increase our wages. Our life is getting harder in a fiat world every day. And most people don't have time to listen to 100 hours of Michael Saylor and Breedlove and Jeff Booth and fucking all of these greats. Like, most people don't have time to watch every single one of Matt Cratter's Bitcoin University videos. But if you do, you start to realize, like, it's just light bulb moment after light bulb moment. You're like, wait a second, like, this is a really big deal. And the reason too, like, I don't own any altcoins. Let's just be respectful to the altcoin community. Let's call them altcoins instead of shit coins. Maybe we could get through the cell membrane barrier and they can hear this a little bit. It's too big of a risk. It's too big of a risk. 1% of the days comprise of like 90% of the upward price pressure with Bitcoin happens at 1% of the day. So like 10 days out of the year is responsible for like 90% of the price moves. You can't time that. No TA, no technical analysis, no masturbating over charts and fucking forever is going to allow you to figure out which day to be in and out of the market. Dude, it's famously said by Giga Chad himself, trading Bitcoin is a sign of lesser intellect. There's no way to know when that price pump is going to take place. You're going to miss out on that pump. And so the idea of peeling off profits, like, what do you mean? Like, where am I going to take my Bitcoin profits? Like, what do I want more than the Bitcoin? Like, if I'm profiting on the Bitcoin, like, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin. It's selling the winner to buy the loser. It doesn't make sense. And so buying altcoins, maybe, and there are people, and I do get this. There are people who are moving in and out of alts. I see it on Twitter. Some guys are like, oh yeah, I did this. I fucking 10x in like a week. Well, it's a trade. You better put that profit into Bitcoin. Or what are you going to do? You're going to sit on it in dollars? You're going to go YOLO into a weekend in Vegas or something? Like, it's too big of a risk. We have the greatest financial opportunity in all of human history right in front of our eyes. And anything other than going to the marketplace, providing ethical value, and putting your surplus in Bitcoin, as far as I'm concerned, in my humble opinion, it's just my opinion, I could be totally wrong, but anything other than that is a flawed strategy. And it requires too much thought, honestly. Like, just fucking take the simple strategy. Probabilistically, you're going to make the most, and take that extra cognitive, RAM, that extra energy that you have, and go fucking enjoy yourself. Channel it into making something awesome, some art, some things, your craft, whatever that may be. So, yeah.
Man, you're a really deep thinker, and I wanna play a clip from a Mark Moss podcast last couple weeks ago. And he had this gentleman named Luke on his show, and he talks about back in the 1900s or the 900 AD, during the times of slavery, when people were born in a period of like a 400-year period of slavery. If they were born at year 200, their parents were slaves, their great-great-grandparents were slaves, their great-great-grandparents were slaves. So basically, they knew nothing about being a slave. I want to get your reaction to this clip and get a little commentary from you, because I'm really a big fan of the way you think. So check out this clip.
So you know what I was talking about with Andrew on the Tesla coming over here in the car, and I was like, imagine you're in year 200 of the 400-year of Israeli slavery inside the Egyptian kind of empire, where you have the story of Moses, or you can even take when Israel gets captured and taken into exile to Babylon, you have the story of Daniel. What happens if you're born in year 227 of that slavery? You have no context of freedom. You have no understanding of what it means to be autonomous. Yeah. You have no reference point of working for yourself. You have no reference point of making your own money. You have no reference point of sovereign currency because you're under the thumb of your oppressor. Yeah. People don't seem to understand that that's where we are today. You're 200 and something years into an ecosystem that's been curated and designed for slavery. Mm-hmm. So when you understand that you're 100 and something years into the psyop, you begin to ask yourself, why does it take 10 years, 12 years in order for me to buy a house, cash? That sounds kind of slavish. When a couple years ago, I would have to work 2-3 years. And right. Before that, it would take a couple months. What the fuck is a 30-year mortgage? Yeah. Now they're trying to come up with 50-year mortgages. So I begin to evaluate all these scenarios, and I ask myself, where the fuck are we going in the future? So it's not so much an opinionated thing, it's more so I like to observe things pragmatically and see them play out.
What I was saying is, do you think
What do you think about that statement there?
I think he's absolutely correct. And I actually would take it maybe even a little further. And I would say that for all of known history, we've had that issue. And at best, you could escape that oppressionary force, which is a result of in a free market. So let's take, for example, the United States. The United States, a bunch of revolutionary, savage, freedom-minded motherfuckers left Europe. When they were over here, they're like, wait a second, these assholes just keep taxing the shit out of us. Like, you could get fucked with your taxes. Like, we're over here living our little life, and you keep wanting to tax us. Actually, dude, on the side note, like as I'm saying it, I realize, and I've heard somebody speak to this, they took up arms over a 2% tax on tea, on sipping a sipping drink that isn't even that awesome. Let me just sip this warm leaf extract here, and I'm gonna fucking kill you because you're gonna take 2% tax on this tea. Anyways, that's a fucking side note. That's just, and here we are getting taxed 50%. Dude, just living our life, man. Just happy if we could get all fucking drunk watching fucking bunch of people chase a brown ball around a field. It's fucking silly, dude. But anyways,
bread in a circus.
Gosh, that's real, dude. So they're like, yo, hey, we don't like your laws, your taxes, and so we're gonna fight you to the death, and we're gonna be a free region. And what happened in that free market dynamic is you had this great nation develop as a result of having the best property rights. Like I've heard Saifedean speak to this a whole lot. Saifedean and Breedlove and a lot of the OG Bitcoiners. In a free market where you have the ability to keep the most of what you make, that incentivizes the most innovation, which is going to in turn create the most healthy populace. What will develop, though, is you will end up paying a centralized group of individuals to help and organize that society, to build roads, and then also to protect your property rights, i.e. a government and a military. And so the problem, though, is that governing body is made up of humans who are corruptible. And so for all of known history, at best, you could escape tyranny from corrupted humans temporarily. And so, yes, he's right. And I like that example. But at what came on the other side of the revolution from the slaves who escaped the slavery was a period where it was temporarily free. But then you had corruption ensue because a free market dynamic, as a free market maximalist who's thought a lot about anarchy and free markets, you would end up with, and it's like, and Mark Moss speaks to this, you go from a centralizing swing back into a decentralizing time and period. And so as you decentralize, let's say the states, for example, hypothetically, if the states broke up in some civil war and every state became its own autonomous region, what happens is that then the governing body within that state now has to make more rules or has to make new rules, or has to eliminate rules. They either have to, that somebody within that populace is going to decide what the rules are with the help of the citizens, and without a incorruptible protocol, you can't trust. Like, actually, what you can trust is at some point, the humans that are behind making those rules will be corrupted. And they will slowly, over time, plunder more and more. And it's like this runaway. It's like in a HODL hangout with Kaysen, John Vallis, Breedlove, and American HODL. One of the things that I think Breedlove said it, and I just absolutely love this so much. When you lie, and debasing the currency in the form of issuing more certificates for gold than you have gold on reserve, it's a lie. You're essentially hard forking reality. And now you have two chains to maintain, one which was the truth and one which is the lie. And the more that you stack on top of that lie, the more energy it requires to maintain that lie, i.e. more debasement, more distortion, more noise, more bribes, less signal.
More kickbacks, more corruption.
Absolutely. And so I agree entirely with what he is saying, but I would expand upon it further. And I would say that for all of known history, at best, at any particular point in time, the best you could ever do would be escape that tyranny that corruptibility temporarily. And what we have now, which is so absolutely mind-blowing, is we have an incorruptible protocol that all I need to trust that protocol is that humans are going to be corruptible and want the most, like they have been for all of known history. And in order to get the most, you better stack and you better mine, because if you try to steal or you try to 51% attack, you're going to lose that energy. And if you have enough economic energy, like you're some large mega corporation or you're some nation state, and you attempt to corrupt the Bitcoin protocol, at some point you'll go out of business, because you will lose and you will lose and you will lose. In being that we live in a universe or a reality that's energy in, energy out, if you don't profit or you don't bring in energy for the energy that you're expending, at some point you will Darwinian motherfucking out of existence. Yeah. And so it is the discovery of incorruptibility, and it literally inverses so many things in our reality. Dude, it's literally, and this is just my opinion, and other Bitcoiners do say this, this is the most exciting time to live in all of history. All of known history. This is the best time to live ever, because, in my opinion, we get to witness the BB world, the before Bitcoin world, where forever the incentive was to violence, all the way back to the existence of a single-celled amoeba. The path of least resistance to get something is to take it. Yeah. Just kill you and fucking take it. Punk you and take it. Bully and fucking steal your lunch, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the path of least resistance to acquire someone's economic energy is to negotiate with them. It's peace. And so individuals like you and I, you know, we're millennials. We have a half, maybe third, hopefully, if I get to live long enough, of my life has been in the old paradigm, as I refer to it, the old world. And so we have the most contrast. Like, your great grandchildren are only going to hear stories about how difficult it was to escape plunder, tyranny, and theft, because they're just going to be thinking to themselves, like, what a great world. Like, we have all this abundance. We produce all these resources. We trade fairly. As Booth says it, we have an honest ledger, so we can build an honest society, an honest economy on top of that ledger. So they won't have the contrast. And being able to see how challenging and shitty, and also too, on a positive note, like central banking and like the banking bloodlines that, like, God, you could get on YouTube or wherever and you could watch conspiracies about these banking families that are just so diabolical and evil. Okay, well, at some point, totally, right? Well, at some point, one of those individuals actually provided a lot of market value and solved a serious problem. And that was the issue related to the physicality of gold, which was the best monetary instrument that we had because of the 5 properties of money, thanks to like Breedlove and his work. You don't want to travel with a chariot and a bunch of dudes with swords and maybe muskets at the time with a whole fucking chest full of gold, because now you have an incentive for a bunch of people to jump out of the trees, and Robin Hood will just pluck you and take your gold, right? So you needed a custodian, a warehouse, to house that gold and to give you a certificate so you could go into the marketplace and trade those certificates. The problem was, dude, that was a great technological solution. The problem was that we're trusting humans. Humans are corruptible. So at some point, one of those bankers is just like, oh shit, I could just issue a few more certificates, then I have gold on reserve, and then if everybody doesn't come in at the same time and ask for their gold, then I'll get away with this, right? And so, yeah, that technology was a great solution, but it was corruptible. And so the fact that everything that we've ever had pre-Bitcoin has been corruptible, and now that we have this incorruptible protocol, changes everything. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but you get the point.
Yeah, man, you delivered it, man. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're going on that hour mark, and this is probably one of my favorite interviews that I've done. I'm absolutely a huge fan of the way you think. I'd love to have you back on. Let everybody know where they can follow you, promote your businesses, where are you specifically mainly on Twitter? I'm going to throw your Twitter up on the screen. We also got the Twitter link down below. Are there any other places that you can follow you? Are you putting out content constantly? Tell us all about where people can get a hold of you, and then I'll ask you one more question after that.
Yeah. So currently all of my content has been on Twitter. The main reason for that has been I just finished a 2-year contract at the farm that I've been filming videos in this greenhouse. So I've been making videos, just making, rants, typically more long-term philosophical, societal implications of Bitcoin. I'll just start the camera and unedited, turn the camera on, talk for 5 to 20 minutes, turn it off, post it. I just finished a 2-year contract, so now I'm a free agent and I'm pivoting my business life. I'm creating a Bitcoin based revenue stream for myself, and I have a few plans for how that's going to go in the long term. Currently, right now, all I'm doing is just making Bitcoin content. In the next few days, I'm going to start loading all of the videos that I make onto Nostr and onto YouTube. So I will be on all the platforms as Eric, ERIC V Stacks, Eric V Stacks. Currently, though, I probably have 70 or 80 videos if you go through my Twitter feed, and they're not actually like time relevant. Most of them are, will be relevant for many years to come based upon the fact that they're more long-term societal implications of this incorruptible protocol. Apex property, whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to the halving party in El Salvador. I'm going to be at a lot of the I am. I'm excited. I leave on Friday.
Maybe we can get you to come in for a few minutes on the show when you're down there and give us a little preview of what's going on down there. Yeah,
I would love that. I got no problem with that, man. Yeah. So I'm all in on Bitcoin. I'm 100% of my investable economic energy, you could say, is in Bitcoin. And then now I am participating in, I don't believe I'm coming into Bitcoin and providing some value and helping the world adopt Bitcoin. I don't think the world needs help to figure out that they need Bitcoin. I think that that's hubristic, and I don't have that hubris. I'm just happy to be a part of it. I say this all the time on Twitter. I'm just super grateful and super pumped for this new discovery, new technology, and I'm just riding the wave, man. I want to be a part of it. It's exciting. And, the Bitcoin community, generally speaking, are people that are very optimistic and very healthy and very excited about the future, which is the opposite of people who are all wrapped up in, I don't know, there's the normal world, watching CNN, Fox News, whatever, redacted. They're on YouTube just watching all the atrocities take place all day long. And I don't, ignore that, but I combat it through voting with my dollar, through supporting an honest protocol, an honest ledger, a monetary system that has an incentive to peace. And I think that that's the most effective thing you could do if you have an issue with the quote unquote clown world. So, I talk about it. I make videos about it. And
so I originally had one question, but I kind of want to throw two at you. The first one will probably
I got time, so don't worry.
Okay, cool. What are you're such a critical thinker. I love the way you think. You talked about Darwinianism and several other things. Who are your favorite authors? If you could pick like maybe 5 authors if they're new to Bitcoin and want to kind of learn about, not just about Bitcoin specifically, about how you think about how money and, inflation and all these things. Who are your 5 authors that you'd like people to read from? I'm going to take some notes.
Well, okay. So the first one that comes to mind, I would say that as far as if I were going to give somebody 5 books
or authors
in general, I would say, okay, The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle comes to mind. I think that the reason for that is I think it's really challenging for us to stay present. There is only now. Yesterday is a memory and tomorrow is just an idea. But all we have, we're just moving through a perpetual forever now. And being present is something that's very difficult to do. People spend a lot of their time either fucked up over what happened in the past, and sometimes that'll be in the form of being very guilt-ridden. People will have a lot of anxiety or fear, and that's associated with spending too much of your mental energy projecting of what you think may or may not happen in the future. And so the more that we're present, and we stay present and we stay conscious of the present moment, the more conscious we are about what we're doing in that moment, it can pull us out of these bad habits that we may be like operating on some autopilot. And we're all very, very heavily programmed by the system at large. And so The Power of Now is an easy and fun, like, I don't know, inspiring read that just makes you feel good. Another one would be The Biology of Belief from Bruce Lipton. And he speaks about epigenetics. And as a cannabis farmer, I can say that I can take a clone of a plant that's a genetic identical copy. Or for example, let's say I was a geneticist and I took a clone of you or myself. And I took one and I put it in some really nice environment where all the resources and all of the love and all of the information and all the nutrition and all of the healthy things that you could ever need or want are available to you. And I took one and I put you in the exact opposite environment. You're in chains, you get fed nothing but bread. And what you would see as a result of the phenotypic genetic expression is going to be vastly different. And what can take place as far as an epigenetic response and a phenotype expression can happen very, very quickly. And I see it with plants. And so the biology of belief is about how what you think and what you believe can actually upregulate or downregulate your genetic code. So if you believe that you're predisposed for cancer because some doctor said that your father had prostate cancer and now you are going to have a high probability of having prostate cancer, the belief itself has a effect on that probability, and it's scientifically proven that that belief has an effect on that probability. And where the Fiat medical system is incentivized to teach you or indoctrinate you to believe that that's the case, it has nothing to do with the fact that he ate a bunch of seed oils or a bunch of toxic food, right? It had nothing to do with the fact he lived under a fucking bunch of power lines, right? No, it's a genetic predisposition, and we did a test on you, and you got a 67.2% chance that you're gonna have prostate cancer. Get fucked with that. That's craziness, dude. Like, let's look beyond that. For all of known history, that's not been the case.
Yeah.
And then another one would be Joe Dispenza's books. Joe Dispenza is these three are going to be more spiritual and metaphysical, I would say. You know, you got Eckhart Tolle, Bruce Lipton, and then Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza also speaks to, and he's a neuroscientist who studies people's brain waves as they go into flow state or meditative states. And he says things like, essentially, can I distill it down to the most basic? Like, what you think generates a feeling. What you think and how you feel generate a feeling and a personal reality or a personality. And so how you think affects how you feel, which affects how you behave, which affects what you do, which affects what you get. So there's this it's a pretty simple thing to think about. Like, okay, so you have a thought, which is associated with the feeling. If you have a positive thought, you're going to have a positive feeling. The feeling is going to affect your behavior. So if you have a negative thought and a negative feeling and you go behave negatively, you're going to get a negative result, which is going to reinforce the negative thought and the negative feeling, and it creates this feedback loop. And he's studying people's brain waves as they go through, break out of that feedback loop, and they start to think a positive thought, which has a positive feeling, which creates a positive behavior, which creates a positive outcome, which reinforces that. And so through doing brain scans and getting people into these gamma brainwave states within deep meditation, and then teaching people how to feel, because really, and I believe this to be true, how you feel about your life is the most important thing. And if you feel really good about what's happening to you, it actually doesn't matter what's happening to you. If you feel good about it, then you could say that it's good, even if it's a challenging thing. Like, you have to have the duality of life. Like, if I have a problem in my life that I can solve, that's not me dead, I can adopt a perspective of gratitude about that problem. Hey, this is a challenge. There's something positive in this. We've all heard the story from like the paraplegic who's like, they're in a wheelchair talking in a voice recorder. He's like, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. Your mind's blown. You're like, what do you mean? This guy is like literally telling you that him becoming a paraplegic changed his life for the better. And now he's on stage talking in front of millions of people, like inspiring people to be happy and positive and grateful or whatever. And that's through having positive thoughts that elicit positive feelings, because how you feel is very important. And it does actually affect, and I believe it affects your reality on a quantum level. In quantum physics, there's the double slit experiment, which essentially the observer is what causes. So in that experiment, they blast a wave through these two slits, and in one side of the wave goes through the slit and it hits this wall where they can record it. And if it's not observed, the wave goes through and it hits the wall through the slit as a wave. But if somebody's watching it, the wave collapses into a particle, which the idea is based upon this. And there's great YouTube videos. You can watch like a 10-minute breakdown of this. And it's mind-blowing. And what that is indicating is that the observer, at the very least, is affecting the physical world, our reality, by observing it. It's like that question: if a tree falls in a forest and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, it's a very good question. As they push a wave through a slit, if there's no observer, and if you're not watching it happen, you can see that it went through and it maintained its wave state. But if you watch it happen, the wave collapses into a particle. So we live in a quantum world where, at the very least, we know through scientific study that the observer is affecting the reality. If that's the case, then we should be very mindful of what we think and where we put our energy and our focus. So Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now; Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief; Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza's got countless phenomenal 1 hour, 2 hour YouTube interviews. And then, of course, Saifedean with the Bitcoin Standard. It's very basic economic history in theory, Austrian school of, economic thought. That's a super, super killer one. And what would be my last recommendation here? I would say also another Saifedean, Principles of Economics, because that's another, he basically rewrote Principles of Economics in a coherent, non-Keynesian bullshit way, man. So those things, just understanding, the basic monetary history, Keynesian economic theory, which is the world we live in today, MMT, modern monetary theory, where the idea is essentially you can just continue to debase the currency to keep the velocity of the money. That's the amount of times the money changes hands. It's moving quickly with the economy. As it debases, you're incentivizing people to not hold the money, which is going to stimulate economic activity. That's the idea behind Keynesian economic theory. Austrian monetary theory, which now, because of Bitcoin, is actually something that we can implement, is the idea with a hard money that the incentive is to hold the money and also you're not going to hold money and then starve to death because the money is appreciating so fast. So on a Bitcoin Standard with no fiat and your Bitcoin is appreciating and buying more goods and services every year, you're not going to die because you don't want to deploy your economic energy to buy food. It's just that's this Keynesian lie. That's this idea that if we don't debase, then people are going to hoard money and the economy is going to collapse. And so, those Saifedean books really help to break down in a very logical and coherent manner what we're doing, why we've been doing it, the idea behind why it's being done, and what's taking place. It's this free market immersion of a better solution or a better alternative to a broken system, essentially. So you got a little bit of metaphysics and a little bit of monetary history. And and I would say that these are just science-based too, like Dispenza and Bruce Lipton, they're accredited scientists. The mainstream fiat academia might poo-poo these people because it's not your Keynesian indoctrinated crazy clown world stuff. But very thought-provoking things.
Man, I had two questions there, but I got so into the books that you were telling me there and taking notes, I forgot what the second question I asked you was. Do you remember? What did I say there?
I don't know that you asked me.
I don't know if I did either.
What was it?
Man, it was so good. It was such a good follow-up to what we were talking to earlier. But maybe we'll just save it for another show, man. This was such a great show. I'd love to have you back on anytime you want to come on. Especially if you're going to be putting out YouTube videos. I hope you will join us over on Rumble as well. You know, the free speech capital of the internet. We need more and more Bitcoiners over there for sure, man.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I need to. Yeah, my format. So I don't know if I'll give you the little backstory on it. So I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. For the last 2 years, I've been actively had my wheels turning while I finished up a consulting gig where I basically built out, designed this greenhouse facility, set up all the operating procedures, and then managed this cannabis farm for the last 2 years because I'm quite efficient and good at it. And that's what I sold my farm actually in 2018 after owning it for 2 years. A lot of that had to do with discovering Bitcoin and realizing that the long-term success with owning that farm was going to be heavily stifled by commoditization, jurisdictional competition, essentially supply meeting demand and everything falling to the marginal cost of production, like Jeff Booth says. That happens. And intuitively, I knew that was happening. So I sold the farm and I pivoted my model towards consulting. But for the last 2 years, I've also had a long-term plan of changing my line of work to creating something that's digital. If I produce one crop or 1 pound, I sell it one time, it's done, it's over with, that's it. I move forward. I have to do more of that. And there are a lot of people in the cannabis industry, like, I feel like cannabis is at the point where the toothpaste is out of the tube, like we're past the tipping point, prohibition will end. There's so many people behind that, like cannabis doesn't need me anymore. Like I've succeeded as far as I'm concerned within cannabis. And I'm very passionate about Bitcoin. So I want to create some sort of Bitcoin-based business. I couldn't wrap my mind around how I would do that. And I've had a lot of people tell me, like, you should have a podcast or you should make videos. And there's so many great podcasters and there's so many great content creators and whatnot. And I just can't, I really struggle to see how I could do that. Well, I went to Pacific Bitcoin in October last year. It was the first time I went around. I'm the only Bitcoiner. Well, I've created a little army of Bitcoiners in my world through running around just yelling at them about Bitcoin for the last couple of years. But I'm like the only hardcore Bitcoiner that I know in the physical world. And I haven't been active on Twitter. I've been predominantly on Instagram because it's a better format for being a cannabis producer and showing my farm or looking at other people's cannabis facilities and their product and whatever. The way that the media is formatted, it's just easier for somebody who's producing something like that. And so I got onto Bitcoin or onto Twitter in like September or so and started, I don't know, to interact a little bit with the Bitcoin community. I went to Pacific Bitcoin and I was hanging out with a few heavy hitters with the game, like one of Matt Cratter as an example. And I was telling him my story. And the following day, he's like, hey, you're pretty entertaining. You should make videos. And hearing it from somebody who has 200,000 subs, who makes videos professionally, like there's an air of credibility, or it's like, oh man, like, and he also, I don't think he's an individual who just says dumb things that he doesn't mean. So like that kind of hit hard, like, all right, I should make videos, but I couldn't wrap my mind around how I'm going to make videos. I don't have time to edit videos and whatever. And so I came home after the conference. That was a powerful experience being around so many other, I don't know, Bitcoiners. It's a special thing. And then when the conflict in the Middle East broke out, something inside of me like completely just like changed, where that like bashfulness. And now, mind you, too, I've spent the last 20 years of my life in quasi hiding. The whole idea was to not have attention on me. I've been producing cannabis, even though I've been lawful within the state of California. Dude, you get arrested. You have to prove you're lawful. It's this like you're guilty till you prove you're innocent. You don't want to get robbed. It's like a cash-based business. So the whole program was to not have attention on me. And then I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I'm looking at images online of like people being blown to smithereens, and it's just like something broke inside of me. And it's not about me. Like I needed to change from being more of an observer of our world and an active participant, even though I would say if you're stacking your ass off, you're actively participating in revolutionizing the world for the better, for sure. But but yeah, I just started basically, I just turned the camera on and I started ranting on Twitter, and people seem to like it. So I've kept doing it. And it's, I just did a keynote speech at Bitcoin Atlantis in Madeira. I'm going to El Salvador for the halving party. I've done, 15 plus podcasts now. So something is unfolding as a result of my rants about Bitcoin on Twitter. So I'm just going to keep running with it, man.
Well, man, you have a gift that, I interview a lot of people, especially over on LFA TV and all the other networks. I've been in this industry since 2015. Like I told you before we got started, I was one of the first people teaching people how to mine Ethereum. Fortunately, I wasn't teaching people how to mine Bitcoin, but it's very rare that I meet somebody that has your skill set, that has the gift to gab, the ability to talk and elaborate, and is very articulate on almost any question I threw at you. That's very rare. It's an asset. And if you ever want help or need any advice about setting up a studio or kind of taking your production level to the next level, man, I'd be more than happy to go out of your way. You're going to be a very, very successful name in this industry. And I think you're a huge asset to the Bitcoin community. And it was an honor to have you on the show. And I'd honestly be appreciative if you'd come back once a month or once a week if you really wanted to, and just shoot the shit with us and talk Bitcoin and promote your channels. And anything I do to help you grow and get your voice bigger, man, just let me know. And it'd be an honor to have you back anytime.
Yeah, I really appreciate that tremendously. Yeah, that means a lot. You have a serious air of credibility there. So that's that's a big compliment. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I would be happy to be on your show, man. As often as you want to have me.
Dude, man, let's do it, man. So we'll talk we'll talk after the show today. And again, I hope everybody swings over there and follows you over on X. And I'll give you the last 1 or 2 minutes, man. You want to say anything else, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, you know what? If I got the opportunity, I would say 2 things. One, if you have a problem with Clown World, let's call it Clown World.
Yeah.
Yelling at Clown World, putting your energy into combating Clown World, going to anti this rallies or pro that rallies and being all revolutionary in the streets, I think it only strengthens Clown World. Energy flows where energy goes, where energy flows, where attention goes. So if your attention is on yelling at Clown World and all the injustices that you see in Clown World, unfortunately, at least in my opinion, you're really only strengthening it. So I would suggest that if people have an issue with Clown World, they figure out a more productive way to defund Clown World. Vote with your dollar, vote with your energy. Put your energy into Bitcoin. It's an honest network. Buy Bitcoin. Support the Bitcoin network, work for Bitcoin community businesses, make Bitcoin content, go to Bitcoin gatherings. It's a whole different vibration. It's a whole different feeling. And the act of doing so is supporting the greatest antidote to Clown World humanity has ever had. And the other thing I would say is as the currency debases, the things that we want denominated in that currency, the dollar, the euro, the yen, the whatever it may be, it's Venezuelan bolivar is a great example of an extreme example. What you want denominated in that currency is moving further away from you. But if you denominate the life that you want in Bitcoin and you measure the value of things in Bitcoin, the opposite effect is taking place. The $1 million house that you wanted, a couple of years ago, denominated in Bitcoin at 10 grand a coin, you could say was 100 coins. Well, that $1 million house now is 15 coins. Yep. So it was 100 coins at 10 grand a coin just recently. Now it's 15 coins. Then it's going to be 7 coins. Then it's going to be 1 coin. So if you're on a quasi Bitcoin standard, and I would consider you could live on a Bitcoin standard even if you're forced to use the dollar. If you denominate what you want in Bitcoin and you save in Bitcoin and you earn dollars, you buy the food, you pay the rent, you pay the mortgage, whatever, and then you take those extra dollars and you put them into Bitcoin, you are living on a Bitcoin standard. And if you're on a Bitcoin standard, your life is getting better, not harder.
Correct.
So,
and
yeah.
I remember that question. So let me throw it at you. I know you said it was okay to go over a little bit. What do you say? This is the number one question I get, especially over on LFA, where I'm trying to orange pill a bunch of people who were completely brainwashed and indoctrinated by Elizabeth Warren and all the freaks out there. What do you say to the people who go, well, what if power goes out? It's the number one retarded thing I get, but everybody's asking it. What is your response to what if power goes out?
I have answered that question several times, and I live in I live in Humboldt County, right? So I'm in Northern California, the redwood forest. It's a large landmass with not very many people and a lot of resources and a lot of apocalyptic prepared individuals.
Mhm.
And so if the power goes out, okay, so I do think that everybody should have flashlights, you should have batteries, you should have freeze-dried food, maybe some
Gun.
canned meat, whatever. You should always have that stuff because a solar flare could take place. Dude, I had an earthquake in Northern California a year and a half ago. The power was out for like 4 days. And I pulled out generators and I fired up my freezer, my refrigerator, whatever. Like you got to be prepared for those kinds of things. Even if you're in an apartment building, you should have some water. You should have some freeze dried food. You should have like a little camping stove that you can, little propane canister. You can boil some water. You can make some food. Like that's just common sense, dude. Like you should definitely have some sort of preparedness. But as far as your monetary energy, if the power goes out, let's say there's an EMP attack or a solar flare, and we have a serious grid down scenario. Let's just Canadian Prepper in his YouTube channel, like, oh, grid down, you're fucking toast. We're months. You're going to be living in a hole for months. Okay, this a very apocalyptic, challenging circumstance. Well, first off, the first thing humanity is going to do is work on getting the internet back up. Our entire civilization operates on the network that connects us all together that we call the internet. So it's a network, it's a protocol that connects everybody. Our phones, all of it is on the internet. Maybe you should have a radio so you could listen to, hey, in your little emergency kit, you have a little radio with some batteries. And if there's, grid goes down, you can listen to what's happening. Okay. So as far as your money goes, you don't want gold or silver in a really terrible apocalyptic situation. You want fucking lead, okay?
Yes,
you want
damn
lead. Right. I'll take a precious metal for sure. I want lead. I want 9 mil. I want 12 gauge. I want buckshot. I want some 5.56 green tip, and I'll take like a fucking 1,000 or more of them, okay? That's what I want as far as a precious metal in a very apocalyptic, diabolical, grid down, terrible situation, right? And then that's how you're going to protect your resources. And on that note, like, I'm not an advocate of violence. I think a well-armed society is a polite society. People's ability to project power to protect themselves keeps other people in check. And so, yeah, the thing that would happen if the power goes out is you would have to hunker down. Maybe you have to barter for a few weeks. And then at some point, even if it was a few years later, like nobody's going to give a shit about your gold bars, dude. I'll tell you right now, nobody's going to care about your gold bars. They're going to start burning your cash wad for heat. Nobody's going to care about that. As soon as the internet comes back on, your Bitcoin's right there.
Yes, sir.
It's actually the safest place. Like, I would rather have Bitcoin if the power goes down for 5 years than have gold, because I'm going to have to be hunkered down just holding on to this gold. Don't steal my gold. Will somebody here? I'll cleave you off some gold dust for some, I don't know, some extra batteries to keep my fucking radio going. That's craziness, right? No, you need lead, you need batteries, you need fucking freeze-dried food. You maybe should have some seeds so you can start a garden. I don't know, right? So, but as far as a monetary instrument goes, Bitcoin, I would argue, is the best thing that you would want if the power goes out, because it's going to be right there when the power comes back on, and nobody's going to kill you in the middle of mayhem and steal your Bitcoin.
Amen, brother. Fucking man. Eric, man, it was such an honor to have you on the show, buddy. It was such a pleasure, honestly, and I'm literally looking forward to getting off this call so I can schedule something else to get you right back on, man. So thank you again.
Yeah, this was super fun conversation, man. Definitely.
Dude, it's an honor, man. I love the way you think, man. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Greatly appreciate it. If you guys can do me a huge favor again, down in the link is the link to Eric's Twitter over there. So please swing over and follow this man, especially you guys are getting into Bitcoin. These are the type of people that I recommend that you take investing advice from, or at the very least stacking Bitcoin advice from people like this. Stop buying those shit coins. Stop chasing those 100x gains and learn how to protect your wealth in the hardest asset known to man. God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys for stopping by the channel. And I can't wait to see you guys tonight, or I'll be over on LFA TV at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my show called Matter of Fact. So if you guys want to go down the political rabbit hole and talk about how corrupt our government really is, swing over there and give me a follow. And we'll also be back here tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless you guys. See you guys in the next one.